All right. It looks like we are back and live and everything's good for another stream here. So, yeah, it's been a while and figured I would catch up on some stuff. Got all sorts of Kamen America stuff to talk about, some Soul Finder updates, iconic comics, to go through all the stuff in indie comics that I've seen that's come across my feed. Been put on my radar over the past, I don't know, 3 weeks, a month. I don't know how long it's been since the last time I was on a stream, but I am here. So I got all sorts of tabs we will go through. Tagia, thanks for tuning in. Says howdy, Doug. Howdy, appreciate it. So yeah, we're just gonna go down the list here, and then as things come up, we'll adapt and overcome anything that comes up. That people, I'll keep an eye on the chat, and we'll go from there. So I don't know. Let's see where we want to start out. And then I actually saw that Lasmat had a little documentary, and since I didn't watch the entire thing. I've been bouncing all around, but I saw that I was featured here and there, so I figured I would bop into that for a little bit, say a couple things about that. But for the most part, wanted to make sure, since I haven't had a chance yet to talk about Kamen America Alpha, the manga and omnibus 1 reprint. So go through that. Also, I think Butch Killigan 2 should be fulfilling in the near future. I think I saw that when I woke up this morning. So be on the lookout for that. If you backed Sven's book, then make sure your address is up to date and all of those sorts of things. So there's that. And yeah, in terms of Kamen America Alpha, 1,714 backers, 107,036 on Kickstarter, and obviously on Indiegogo. 219 backers, 12,319, 49 days left there, and 47 to go over at Kickstarter. So Tim and Mark, once again, they are just churning out awesome content after awesome content. They got all sorts of stuff going on here, so check it out. All sorts of different tiers. This looks very, very, very cool. I know I am biased. I fully admit that. But yeah, everything about this looks super cool. So I back this, and then on the whatchamacallit, where's the we'll get to Alejandro in a little bit. The Street Fighter stuff, I think those sold out. There might be some on Indiegogo, the Street Fighter cover here. Let's see if there's any left. I don't know. I think oh wait, they're add-ons, so I don't know if they'll show. I backed on Kickstarter. I didn't back on Indiegogo this time around. Anyway, I don't know if there's any more the Street Fighter covers going on here, but those, if they are, they're going to be on Indiegogo, and they're going to be in the add-ons section. So let's see. John is here. Mr. X is here. Thanks for tuning in. Lorenzo is here. So yeah, man, it's been a while because I didn't cover that, but this was also on if you went on the Iconic Comics website, there was a pre-order for that. So that's where I got this for sure. Boom. Everything is going well. Check it out if you haven't already. What else was I going to say? There was something else here that I was going to bring up. More Tim and Mark news. I'm just going to try and keep it all together. There was the Black Ops announcement earlier today. So here we go. Black Ops 7 is officially finished, says Tim. And they have started working on Kamen America 11. Best of all, the next campaign will be a double feature as we offer both titles simultaneously, something that's never done before in their publication history. And then obviously he turns to, lets you know about Kamen America Alpha. So Tim and Mark, no slowing down. Black Hawk 7 finished. Working on Kamen America 11, double feature. I mentioned the Street Fighter. Going down my little bullet points here, making sure I got everything where it needs to be. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so we could return to Tim and Mark in a little bit if we want to. Now we will go to Soul Finder. Obviously, Iconic Comics. You can check out the page. Got all the stuff there. Got rosaries, Soul Finder Tunnel Hounds available, Noctis, all the other stuff, the pins, the polo shirts. Oh, actually, the polo shirts. Speaking of that, for those of you who got those, thank you very much. They are arriving. I actually got mine the other day as well, and I have not had a chance to share it, but I will have it at Bell County Comic Con. I was telling Tim last night that the fabric is very comfortable, but it is unforgiving. So I will have to continue exercising every single day. No, not every single day. I will have to continue exercising multiple times a week from now until August, because if you have any donuts, it's going to show in these shirts. But the artwork is very cool. Artwork by Alejandro Mirabal on the back from Warcry. And then on the front, Eric Canetti's Noctis work on there. So as I've said to people before, if you show up to the Bell County Comic Con booth and you are wearing the Soul Finder polo that was designed by Timothy Lim, I will have some sort of Doug prize available for you. So thank you to everybody that got those. That will actually help me learn some stuff about new merchandise, clothing that I didn't know before. And there's all sorts of other stuff that I want to do down the line. So that will help me out. Speaking of Bell County Comic Con, Dan, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. So Tim photoshopped me in as a little tiny man right there. But you can kind of see probably from the background window. This is at Iconic's Fulfillment Center. I got this humongous display. It's two-sided. So on one side is artwork by Jeff Spokes, who's now doing a bunch of stuff for DC. I would love to get Jeff Spokes back, but I'm pretty sure DC has him locked down. But as soon as he's free again, I will be hitting him up for more artwork. But it's Jeff Spokes on one side, and then on the other, there's a surprise piece that I'm holding off on. So that will be there. Got the booth upgrade. So I've said before, basically every year I'm trying to either have new books, ideally, or if I only had the soft cover one time, then I want to have the hard cover the next, or have a short story, or have something along the lines that's new. I have new merchandise. John Luke, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. I have new merchandise that is being produced right now, and I hinted at it on X, but I might as well say it here that it will be a Seraphim summer. So if you're familiar with the Seraphim, then you might want to keep an eye on my X account and the Iconic Comics website and Bell County Comic Con, because we're getting into the Angels, and then Soul Finder Volume 6, which I have to write and get to Matt Weldon as soon as possible here. Soul Finder Volume 6, without spoiling too much, will also have an angelic element to it. So it's all coming together. It's all part of a larger whole. So if I'm doing something, there's a reason to why I'm doing it, and it's going to tie together to other things. So thank you to everybody that's come along for the ride. All right, boom, we got that. All right, I think we've talked about all of the Tim stuff. We talked about Soul Finder. All right, we could go down the list. Should we go to the Elasmat, the Shadow Band, his little documentary? A little bit had me to do with it. So I don't know the exact rules on this. I don't want to get kicked off of because I'm like live streaming or whatever. But I was a part of this. I guess my main point is I have not watched all of this, but from what I have watched, I probably watched 2/3 of it. It's worth watching. It's worth checking out. I think he did a really good job with it. You can tell he put a lot of work into this, the editing and all of that. There was a good amount of research that was put into it. And in the parts where I saw that I was brought up, I don't really have any like qualms with anything that was brought up or said or anything like that. So yeah, check it out if you get a chance. I guess we'll like bring up some of this. Let's see what he has to say. I'll try and stop it here and there. And if the audio sounds weird, also let me know. But let's see what he has to say here.
Much like the snowflake in Dr. Seuss's book, The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, there exists in the tiny parts of the internet an independent comic book movement that tried to be a movement, but became something entirely different.
So when I first started watching this, as soon as that line just like cracked me up because the delivery of it, I don't know if he meant to be funny or not, but I'm just like, that's pretty much on the money right there. Right away I was hooked with that line.
It was a place meant for customers to find respect and validation, for masculinity to thrive, and for new creative minds to bring out fresh new stories to those customers. I would say it was a nice dream, but like all dreams, you wake up to the reality that it was all pretend.
That's a punishing line right there. I mean, if you're still involved in this thing to this day and you hear that line, that's probably going to ruffle a few feathers right there.
Even more so is the reality that there exist attempts to rewrite its history in a manner Joseph Stalin would find impressive.
Again, we're only 50 seconds in, and he's dropping some truth bombs on heads.
To say that such a movement began with criticism of its own indie books being of low quality, with the exception of those produced by pros who came into the movement later on, while ignoring its grassroots beginnings by customers and YouTube critics, would be, to put it lightly, disingenuous.
Boom! I mean, all right, we're 1 minute and 8 seconds in, and Lasmat here, he's on fire.
Therefore, it's important to document this little phenomena that
got I Love Comics, Eglantine right there.
For a time, reinvigorated comic book fans looking for an alternative to a comic book industry that was being infected with alt-left brain rot, unnecessary race swaps, gender swaps, and tons of forced LGBTQ propaganda. This is the story of an independent comic book movement that felt tons of infighting among customers, creators, and then with each other. A story of unfulfilled potential.
Unfulfilled potential. That's actually an astute observation as well.
Behavior gone completely unchecked. This is the story of Comicsgate, when the culture war hit those pretty little pictures.
Very good. I mean, just on the editing alone and all of this, I mean, just strip out the comic stuff from it. Very impressive. Very good job there, Lasmat. All right. Let's see. Got Captain Cummings there. All right. There we go. Let's see what these guys say. It was my buddy, Dan Slott. Into my blog, back to around 2010, maybe even a little earlier than that, losing track of time. But I started reviewing Amazing Spider-Man and really ticked off Dan Slott. And then he started calling me a right-wing lunatic and a nutcase and all of this sort of stuff. And so the more that he did that to me, then I was like, let me look into this guy. And then I started looking into it, and then he was going off on anyone who believed in the Second Amendment.
He went after Frugal.
Yeah,
you remember that?
I met Frugal in the Marvel message boards because they banned me. So basically what Dan Slott would do, and all these other guys that were in that circle and the editors and stuff like that, is everywhere I would go, Dan would complain about me, and then the moderators would ban me and they would kick me off. And then even on places like Comic Vine, I had one of the moderators like, listen, dude, you didn't even break any rules. But we got this guy, we try to protect him from himself, but he's like crazy basically. And you're just causing too much problem. You got to go. I had to go, even though I wasn't breaking any rules.
The crazy guy gets to stay, but you have to go.
That was what kind of like got me down the road. And then I started looking into like Joey Q and Mark Wade and all these guys. And then I was like, wait, Mark, I think it was Mark Wade. They were going off on Obamacare, and if you didn't agree with them on Obamacare, then you were like the devil and all this. I'm like, all these people are just rabid, crazy, like ideologues. And like, so I started writing on it because I was working both before at the Heritage Foundation, conservative nonprofit, and then ultimately for the Washington Times, which is, the editorial board is right-leaning or whatever. So it was all in my wheelhouse. And that's where and then eventually I was just like, well, I want to reach more people. Let me go to YouTube. Let me try that out. Oh, okay. So here's the thing. So what I've seen lately from our old buddy Ethan lately and others. So there's this new thing now where whenever they criticize me, they act like I only existed as some like guy without a job who was on YouTube every day talking about Dan Slott, and that's the only reason why anybody knows who I am or where I came from or anything. So, which I'm just like, who is gullible enough to believe this? So again, I was working in Washington, D.C., both at the Heritage Foundation for a number of years, and then at the Washington Times, writing typically military technology stories, although I also covered definitely stuff whenever like stuff with comics came up. Nobody else covered that. So those stories always did really well. And then what would happen was, it's been far enough I could actually talk about some of this now. So a lot of times there would be stuff like the Hydra Cap and all of these things that would come out, and I would write a story on the Hydra Cap stuff. And then Breitbart and The Blaze and all of these other, and Hot Air and all of these other places, they would read my story that I did, and then they would write their versions of the story, but they would write them without ever linking to my work, and they would just act like they just were comic people or something along those lines, like, oh, blah, 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 blah. And you're just like, I know you didn't even have that story until I did it. And that's fine that you want to rewrite it and do whatever, but at least can you just link to my story? Like, it's kind of a common courtesy that if you get your story from somebody else, that you tip your hat to them or at least give a hyperlink or something. No, all these big websites, they would take the comic stories that I would do, and then they would pass them off like they were the guys who found them. And it was, for a long time, it really irritated me, because I'm just like, why are they doing this? Why are they like this? All these people, they are always just like, yeah, we're on the same team and blah, 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 and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, well, if we were on the same team and we're all trying to do the same thing, you wouldn't do this thing where I know you got the story from me because nobody else had it. Nobody else is talking about comic book stuff. But suddenly you're doing it. So that was an interesting thing. Anyway, the point is, back to Elasmat's like revisionist history sort of stuff. So that's what they're doing now, is they're trying to pretend like all I did every day was talk about Dan Slott. So it's like, no, I reviewed The Amazing Spider-Man on a monthly basis because I've read The Amazing Spider-Man since I was a child. So I started reviewing The Amazing Spider-Man and what I thought was wrong with it starting around like 2009 or something. And then because I was doing legit reviews on the book, like reviews with substance, Dan got mad at me. And then Dan was going around to the Marvel message boards, Comic Vine, CBR, like all of these places and getting me banned, like using his sway with the moderators to get my accounts nuked. So like I would try and sign in and I was gone. I was just gone. And then on Comic Vine, the moderator came to me and was just like, hey, dude, like, you've never done anything out of line. You're not doing anything other than sharing your opinions or whatever. And, you know, you're not doing it in a unacceptable way. But Dan is really upset. We try and save him from himself, but it's, you know, we can't do it. Basically saying, can you please get the freak out of here because we don't want to deal with Dan. So again, like I said here with Eglantine, I was the problem. I had to go, even though I wasn't breaking any rules because Dan Slott was mad at me. So, and again, I wasn't doing this every day. I had a full-time job in Washington, D.C. My stories were getting picked up by the Drudge Report back before the Drudge Report went insane. My stories were on Fox News. They were getting read on air by Rush Limbaugh and Mark Levin. I was going on nationally syndicated radio shows. I wasn't just some guy in his basement who was heckling Dan Slott on a regular basis. Literally, my stories were bringing in millions of views to the Washington Times when they would get picked up and put at like the top, one of the top stories at the Drudge Report, typically along the lines of the there was a period of time where he was really into the drones, anything with DARPA, anything along those lines. I was getting Drudge hits all over the place. So I shouldn't say all over the place, but a few times a month, Drudge would pick up my stories and they would bring in a lot of traffic to the Washington Times. So if you hear these guys going around making it sound like nobody on earth knew who I was and I was just obsessed with Dan Slott, they're liars. They are dishonest people. AL, thanks for tuning in. John Johnson, the worst thing about listening to a Dougcast at work, I eventually have to pause to do work. Oh, well, the good thing is it'll be around. I'm not going anywhere. So I will continue on with this. Say hello to people like Storytime with Friends. Good afternoon, Edwin. Appreciate it. So, yeah. All right, let's see what else Elasmet's got here. And that's where I met Captain Cummings, and then ultimately you and Richard, and then we were all in our little DM room for like 6 months or whatever it was. The good times. Those are the good times. The good times. Yeah, so that was interesting. I've said before, there was like a DM room. It was like me, Richard, Captain Cummings, and Eglantine for like 5 or 6 months, and basically every single day. This is like the very start. This is when Richard's channel was blowing up. We were in the DM room kind of like mapping out content on a daily basis, literally every single morning. So yeah, if you have fond memories of those times, again, those were the days when we were in the DM room together every single day saying like, hey, what's new? What do we want to talk about? All this sort of stuff. And yeah, it was fun times. So Nick is here. Thanks for tuning in. Rhaegar, thanks for tuning in. Lorenzo again. Appreciate it. All right, let's see what else we got here. Got Tim. Here I am again. Let's see. Oh, it's probably going to go to an ad or something. Sorry about any ads.
When the Julius Caesar analogy made its debut, and the seeds were laid for the creation of the fan group War Campaign.
Likening yourself to Julius Caesar, saying, I don't need to do this, I don't need to promote.
I don't.
There's
I got a lot of people who I don't know who are stabbing me in the back.
I guess, oh man, I gotta be careful here. I guess I don't really need to be careful, but it's very funny. Looking back in retrospect, it's very funny how all things played out. So many people over the course of let's see, 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. The backstabbing apparently never ends. I mean, how many people can stab one man in the back? It's kind of crazy. You would think after a certain amount of time, maybe, just maybe, somebody is not telling the truth.
A lot of people who I don't know who are upset with me and who are putting knives in my back and starting trouble. I'm sorry if that sounds egocentric. That's what it feels like. I've got people who I try to help, people who I try to lift up. And this is the inevitable result.
I know it's happened so many times over the course
I would love to know what Captain Cummings' problem is.
We might just have to agree to disagree, because what you call a knife, other people are calling legitimate disagreements that they have. It's not necessarily a knife, and so it's a matter of you just being able to listen to what they're saying and try and see where they're coming from. I see where you're coming from. I could see why.
Oh wait, what is that? Is that me putting myself in somebody else's shoes and saying that I can see their perspective? What is that called? I think that's called empathy. Yeah, I think that's what it's called, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
You would feel attacked. I totally understand that, but it's one thing to feel attacked.
And again, when you first meet people and then someone's like, I was attacked, the first couple times somebody says they're attacked, like, wow, that's like really bad luck, or like, that's I'm sorry that happened to you, dude. But then when it happens like 11 times, 12 times, 13 times, 14 times, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 times in a short period of time, you have to start to wonder what's going on. I feel as though the stories that I'm being told about people, I feel like there's some lies by omission going on here, because how is it possible that within like 2 or 3 years, one man could be stabbed in the back like 20 times? It doesn't make any sense to me.
And then another to step back and look at things objectively and saying like, okay, maybe there just might be a legitimate reason why people are upset.
I love looking back at some of this stuff and you're just like, well, I feel vindicated.
Then there was the follow-up stream, the transcript stream, where Tim Lin read back a transcript of VBS in an earlier video saying creators making Trump comics should stop and that it didn't belong in CG.
Yeah, but then you fast forward in time, and then the same people that had a huge problem with a Trump parody book are actually putting out Trump variant covers. That is so crazy. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong to be like, that's a bit hypocritical. Again, I must be the bad guy because I think there's something hypocritical about saying Trump parody books are unacceptable. And then you fast forward a couple years ahead, and people are putting out Trump variant covers and things like that.
Lim's falling out was capped by his disapproval of DC Comics artist Mike S. Miller.
That's not true. Lasman, I do got to call you out on that. No, wrong, false. And I'll explain why. The problem, Tim never had a problem with Mike S. Miller existing. And in fact, people were coming to Tim when Mike was saying that he didn't know if Tim was Comicsgate and he had to check with Ethan Van Sciver to see if he met the threshold, the litmus test, whatever Ethan came up with, the final ruling. It was the idea that Ethan got to decide who was and wasn't Comicsgate that annoyed people that, like myself, like Captain Cummings, and like many other people who were like, why would Ethan get to determine whether Tim is Comicsgate, and why is Mike, who just came out of nowhere, out of the blue, why is he telling people that he has to check with Ethan in order to see if Tim is Comicsgate? That doesn't make any sense, and that's highly infuriating. So the idea that, again, Alazmat, I know you're not, quite putting out, but this is the false narrative that has been put out over the course of many, many years, is that Tim had a problem just with Mike Miller existing and being, Comicsgate. No, it wasn't that. It was the idea that suddenly these pros were coming in and saying that Ethan got to decide who was and was not Comicsgate. There's a distinct difference between what is said about Tim and the actual reality.
Known for his Injustice run, joining Comicsgate.
When Mike S. Miller joined, this weird thing happened that I still can't understand it, but a lot of parties that I was not.
So, and this is one of these things that also happens is whenever Ethan always likes to do this thing where he shows like a DM chain and he acts like Tim came to him, when in reality, he was the one who came to Tim. There's a reason why the DMs were cut off. Is because Tim didn't come to Ethan. It was actually the other way around. So, but he tells his audience that Tim had a problem and Tim was upset and Tim came to him. No, it was him. He came to Tim and was asking questions, and then Tim responded like a sane person. Some of our guys who are struggling to make small goals didn't like this too much. I mean, you do have a platform, but you're not obligated to help. Again, he's saying you're not obligated, whatever. And other people, again, people like me, people like Captain Cummings, I'm assuming, well, I don't want to speak for any other people, but plenty of people who liked Tim were annoyed at the idea that pros were suddenly able to, on a whim, decide whether Tim was Comicsgate or not. But again, people are going to talk. It's unavoidable. Again, this is not Tim. He's not saying he's upset that he gives a rip. He's saying you're not obligated. But when things like this happen, you can't be surprised that people are going to talk about it.
Even aware of. People think I know them. I have no idea what's going on. Ethan is inviting all these pros in, and these pros are sucking like all of the money out that would have gone to our independent Indiegogo campaigns. But Mike was drawing the piece. He was drawing my characters. And everyone's characters. Well, not everyone's characters. That was the problem. So,
and again, it wasn't that Mike didn't draw Tim's character. I assure you, Tim doesn't give a rip about that. Never did. It was the idea that when people asked about Tim, Mike said he had to check with Ethan and make sure Tim was Comicsgate and get the final ruling. So do you see? It was the idea that a pro who came from DC was the judge and the jury and the executioner of who was and who was not Comicsgate. This was a fundamental change in Comicsgate. This sort of thing did not exist before the pros came in. And that is what people don't want to talk about. It wasn't that Tim's character wasn't drawn. Nobody, Tim, me, other people don't care about that. It was the response to the question about Tim when Tim had done nothing but help people over and over and over again for many, many months, including Richard. The idea that suddenly this guy who helped so many people and was trying to give small creators a voice could just be negated with the ruling of one man. That's what annoyed people.
He goes on Twitter, he shows the piece, and then a bunch of people feel left out. So people said, hey, why isn't Rags on there? And
see, again, this is not Tim. Tim didn't say anything. And he even says, I'm sure it was nothing malicious, but it just didn't look right with a lot of people. Yeah, it didn't look right, especially when the answer was we got to check and get a ruling on Timothy Lim. Is Timothy Lim good enough? Does he meet our standards? We are the neo gatekeepers. And hey, if Ethan says that Tim's not Comicsgate, well, then he's not Comicsgate.
Like, why isn't Donald Thump on there? That's what happened.
Yeah,
So
this was literally the day after Ethan told me I should be Comicsgate. I'm like, okay, and I had no idea what anything besides the ones I drew on there were.
yeah. And so there was that. So Tim's pissed at that. But
And again, this is a completely fair take as far as I'm concerned. Tim, for many, many months, was going on all of our streams, was in everybody's chat, was helping people. He had already had a relationship with Brett R. Smith, Chuck Dixon, and all of these guys. He was helping all of these creators. He was very public about it. And then nobody knew anything about Mike aside from his work in the industry. But in terms of Mike as a quote unquote comic skater, he just came out of the blue and was saying he needed rulings by Ethan. That's what pissed people off. And not Tim. Again, it wasn't Tim. Tim's just doing his thing.
But I didn't know he was pissed about that.
No, he wasn't pissed. Tim doesn't care. He's telling you what other people who like him how they were interpreting that. But again, the only interpretation that matters in Comicsgate, apparently back then and arguably now, is Ethan's. That's the only real perspective that you are allowed. So yeah, Dan, Tim and Narwhal killing it out there, both ejected by Ethan. Interesting pattern there, isn't it?
I didn't know. And then, he should be on the poster, and Mike is asking me for a second time. This is now a second time that people.
See, that's the heart of it. That is the heart of it. Why does he have to ask Ethan? Why?
People have had to ask me if Tim Lim is legit. So Tim Lim's like, what the hell? I've been doing this. Ethan was at DC, and I've been out here, banging the pavement, doing Trump books and being indie, and I'm Comicsgate.
See, that is what Tim was doing. What he's saying that Tim was doing is true, but Tim's reaction was not. That's not Tim's internal monologue. If anything, Tim was just like, "That's weird." What? But the idea that Tim had some burning vengeance, Tim's always just done what Tim wants to do, and Tim and Mark just do their thing. But it's completely reasonable to point out bizarre behavior when it happens.
Ethan comes out and he says that I'm not Comicsgate, and then Mike S. Miller's here and John Mayle and all these other pros. What the?
I found out about it the day after.
And that's the other thing is Tim was working with Chuck Dixon. Oh, actually, speaking of that, I saw when I woke up for breakfast today, I saw that Ethan was saying that Chuck Dixon is a has-been. So there's a pattern of behavior here going all the way back to 2018. Chuck Dixon puts out a book with an indie creator, and Ethan starts bad-mouthing the book and Chuck Dixon, either in direct or indirect ways. Back then, it was the Trump books that Tim was doing with Trump Space Force with Chuck Dixon. And today, it's the books that Chuck Dixon is doing with Eric July. Do you see that? Whether it's 2018, 2019, or 2025, for some reason, Ethan keeps finding an issue with the books that Chuck Dixon does with indie creators when they're not doing books with the people that he wants them to do the books with. That is kind of it in a nutshell. Let's see, he says, John Luke says that Ethan was worried that Trump Space Force would put attention away from him. And I mean, that was, again, you want to speak about revisionist history with that too. Tim's book was promoted on conservative talk radio. I believe it got picked up by Fox News at one point, at least Fox News business personalities for sure. Scott Adams was talking about it. it had made tens of thousands of dollars. And at some point in time, after all of the weirdness with Ethan, he tried to essentially take credit for Trump's Space Force success when it had already made something like $60,000+ before Ethan ever, talked to Tim on stream or anything along those lines. But anyway, the point is back then Tim was doing books with Chuck Dixon, Tim and Mark, and Ethan was saying, those books are, you shouldn't be doing them, blah 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 blah. Essentially kneecapping Chuck Dixon, a Chuck Dixon project. And now when he's doing projects with Eric July, it's the same thing. You're going to call Chuck Dixon a has-been. Okay, very interesting. So, very interesting.
After it happened, and it was transmit.
All right, so let's see, go through that. We don't need to go through everything. Doug Tenaple. There's the Captain Cummings thing when he confronted. So I guess we'll hopefully Philip. Hopefully you're not mad at me for pausing on this, but I do think it was. First of all, I think that was awesome. When B. Claymore was confronted. Where is it? Did I lose it? Oh, here we go.
Beginning of what would be the severance between John Malin and War Campaign. In our sector of CG, excitement was brewing for a slew of new books, including Wide Holidays, Ardana, the aforementioned Cyborg USA, Simon Potier's Blood Hunt, and War Campaign's own comic, Vestige.
You want to talk about it? Do you want to give me my $40 or do you know?
I can pay you $40.
Okay.
You can ask me directly for $40, Phil. All you've done is
I sent you multiple emails. I've shown it on video.
You've never sent
Do
me.
you want to send me? Do you want to give me my $40 in my hand, or do we want to walk off? Because I do not have time for your bullshit. You can give me $40 now and shut me up, or I can walk off because I have things that I need to do.
bclaymore@gmail.com.
So just to reiterate, a lot of times this is brought up, and people that do not like Philip will say that he confronted B. Claymore on the street for money. It is the exact opposite. Philip was getting ready for a military exercise and a military exercise the next day, and he wanted to have one final nice meal with his wife before he had to go on his military training exercise. So he was going to a restaurant with his wife. Pan is here, says, hail Doug, hail the chat. Pan, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it, man. Keep up the good work. Whenever I see you, I know you're in and out of X and your commentary, but whenever I see you, you are on point and quite funny. So anyway, Pan, thanks for tuning in. Anyway, so Captain Cummings, he's trying to go out to eat with his wife. He's got to go to a military exercise the next day. And B. Claymore comes out of like a pizza place or something and starts screaming at him like a lunatic. And then Phil is trying to get away. He doesn't want any part of it. He wants to just eat dinner with his wife in peace. But B. Claymore owes him $40 because he has a book, Hawaiian Dick or whatever it's called, that is late. At the time, I want to say it was like 3 years. Maybe now it's 5, 6, 7. I don't even know how many years late. But it was a very late book back in the day. And so Phil had sent notifications to I want to say Kickstarter. It was on Kickstarter. And you could send, let people know like, hey, I want a refund or whatever the heck it was, or I'm not getting my book. Anyway, he was being ignored by B. Claymore. So then, while B. Claymore is screaming at him, he pulls out his phone. The second that Philip pulls out his phone, then B. Claymore's demeanor completely changes. And of course, he's the innocent guy. He's the reasonable guy and tries to essentially portray himself as if like he was the one confronted, when again, it was the exact opposite.
I sent it to you on Patreon multiple times. I don't know your Gmail.
Declaimore@gmail.com.
I've sent it to your Kickstarter. I've sent it to your Kickstarter multiple times. Multiple
Is that a reason to just attack me out of the blue?
Attack you for what?
That you made up?
What did I make up?
Really? Your very first video about me was completely invented. You know that.
Which one?
I had no
What
idea
did I?
with this crazy
State.
So again, Philip is livid because he wanted to eat with his wife, and this guy chased him down on the street and was like literally yelling at him. And then when he pulls out his phone, all of a sudden the guy who was screaming like a lunatic is calm. Oh, Phil, I just want to talk to you. So if you know Philip, I mean, and anyone, if you in that sort of situation, some guy screaming at you while you're with your wife, of course you're going to be angry. He's probably trying as hard as he can not to sock this guy in the face. He's trying to show some form of self-constraint in front of his wife. He doesn't want to clock this guy, but he wants to get out of there. But the guy's like saying like he doesn't want him to leave.
Say something that states you just engaged me.
So you can put it on your video. That's right. I want to have a conversation with you because you're not man enough.
I just want my $40. I have things to do. Are you going to give me my $40 now?
Let me ask you a question.
Are you going to give me my $40 that you owe me now, or should I just walk off?
Let me ask you a question.
Okay, then I'll just walk off. I don't want to talk to you unless you have $40. Okay, I'm going to call the police.
You know,
That is one of my favorite clips of all time in terms of Comicsgate. It's like years later and I'm still laughing like it was the first time. All right, so I didn't watch all of this. What else we got here? Oh, here we go. Micah Miller. All right. I thought there was like something on Sweetcast. Where's Sweetcast? Where's our buddy Clint? Come on. Yeah, they actually talks about Pan there. Oh, there's Sweetcast. There we go. All right.
Okay, so he says, I will not endorse or promote anything.
Mr. Grohovac, thanks for tuning in. Says I would have clocked the Claymore
label on it. As long as Antifa and Black Lives Matter terrorists are getting bailed out with comic book money, I will disassociate myself from it. Yikes, that's a huge claim. So I looked this up, and this is actually a thing. It's through Humble Bundle.
Dynamite's Humble Bundle was a
boycott. It was everybody's boycott. I hate that being framed like it was John's boycott. It's everybody's boycott. And
here we go.
For more opportunities for creators in Comicsgate to draw more backers and funds. This didn't sit well with the top guys in CG.
I'm trying to think $5 is everyone saw the stream where you were talking about Clint Stoker not promoting him anymore with Malin. That's right, yeah. Clint Stoker.
All right, so this clip was actually, I don't know 100%, but I'm pretty sure it was the one that I had posted onto X when all of these guys, they had been saying that I had, in the past, they wanted to say that I was going after Clint and all this sort of stuff. Clint and I are on perfectly good terms. I really like Clint. I've backed all of his Dougcast books. And over the years, I never attacked Clint. I only defended Clint, and I defended Clint and saved the clips of these guys saying that they were not going to promote Clint because he brought up the idea publicly of possibly using Kickstarter because it was such a large platform. And these guys all told, they were like, if you go to Kickstarter, you're going to be a traitor to Richard C. Meyer. Ooh. And you know who else? All of this was within the context of saying that Iconic Comics, because Iconic Comics went to Kickstarter, they were traitors to Comicsgate and traitors to Richard C. Meyer. And so they were doing the same thing to Clint that they did to Tim and Mark and essentially myself, because I was telling people that Kickstarter, you should go to Kickstarter, you should go to Indiegogo. If you're an indie creator, you want to reach as many people as possible. So why would you deny yourself the possibility to reach new readers on a platform that is absolutely huge for comics crowdfunding? And so these guys were trying to always beat this drum that Iconic Comics was a bunch of traders to Comicsgate in Richard C. Meyer, your boy Zach, Comics Matter with your boy Zach, Diversity in Comics, yada, yada, yada. And so they were doing the same thing to Clint. And I kept the clips that they deleted. And the reason why they're mad at me is because I kept the receipts. Let's see.
They're saying, why can't I go to Kickstarter? Why can't I? Really? Because we're like a motorcycle club. And right now we're saying don't go to Kickstarter.
See, so what they said was that Comicsgate became a motorcycle club. And those who watch my channel know that it was Comic Book Hut that said that Comicsgate was a gay motorcycle club for Ethan Van Sciver right before he ran to Ethan Van Sciver and his gay, that's Comic Book Hut's terms, our definition, gay motorcycle club.
Clint Stoker, aka Sweetcast, was pushed out of Ethan's graces after he took his book to Kickstarter. John Malin was adamant that he declared it a betrayal for any...
No, so here's the thing, is Clint had not taken his book to Kickstarter at this time. At the time, all he did was do a stream where he was saying that he was thinking about exploring the idea of possibly going to Kickstarter. And then these guys all did a stream saying that, hey, you're offered a certain amount of protection under the Comicsgate. And if you go to Kickstarter, you're going to lose your protection, eh? You don't want to do that, Clint. You don't want to lose the protection of the Don. You don't want to lose the protection of the Ethan Van Sciver and the John Malin. You know what I'm saying? Hey, we go swimming with the fishes if you go to Kickstarter.
Comicsgate to platform on Kickstarter after what he alleged happened to him and your boy Zach for Jawbreakers. This was in spite of the fact that Richard C. Meyer went back to Kickstarter soon afterwards. And CG.
So was Richard C. Meyer a traitor to Richard C. Meyer when he went to Kickstarter? And John Malin said it was like a picket line. You don't want to cross the picket line, Clint. You know, I don't support people that cross the picket line. Scabs. I think they called him a scab. I'd have to look at my clip that they deleted. But they were calling Clint Stoker a scab who crossed the picket line and lost the protection of Comicsgate's made men, the Dons.
Stalwarts like Billy Tucci had always used Kickstarter.
Well, you're Mr. No Kickstarter guy.
Yeah. Well, the entire Comicsgate used to be anti-Kickstarter.
Used to be.
No, that's not true. And so that's the thing, is Comicsgate early on, before guys like me left, said, why would you boycott Kickstarter? Why would you do that? Wouldn't you go to Kickstarter? Wouldn't you go to Indiegogo? Wouldn't you go to as many platforms as possible? If you were a young upstart creator who was trying to reach as many people as possible, why would you boycott Kickstarter? That doesn't really make any sense. So the idea that everybody was on board with that is not true. But again, this is what they did. If you weren't on board, then they made sure to frame you as a traitor, a scab. You crossed the picket line.
How's it feel? Because you were wrong.
It was a boycott. What was I wrong about?
Wait, how was he wrong?
You were wrong. Kickstarter is another place for people to see our books. There's other.
But it was a boycott, Dan. Clearly, just like I can go get a Bud Light. It's just another place for me to go get a Bud Light.
But Dan, his boycott is.
It wasn't my boycott. It was everybody's boycott. I hate that being frank.
It wasn't everybody's boycott. See, that's what they want. Now that time has revealed that Dan Fraga actually had a point there, and actually myself and Tim and Mark and everybody else who thought maybe, and actually Richard C. Meyer and Clint Stoker and all these people that were like, yeah, guess what? We want to reach as many people as possible. So now they gotta reframe it, gotta revise history and say that everybody was on board with a Kickstarter boycott.
Like it was John's boycott. It's everybody's boycott, and we all went along with it.
You gotta
John and Ethan and their little clique went along with it. And because they had, the Ethan's megaphone on his channel, then they can say that if you went to Kickstarter, then you were traitors to Richard C. Meyer. And then a bunch of people who can't really think for themselves would go around Twitter and call you a traitor and say that if you go to Kickstarter, I'm going to refund your campaign or I'm never going to back you again, and yada, yada, yada.
Tell Billy Tucci to boycott Kickstarter.
Yeah, so here is my position, Dan.
So that was the other thing. They were mad that I kept the clips that they deleted where Ethan and John were saying that, oh, well, Billy Tucci, Billy, he's my friend, Billy, he can do whatever he wants. But Clint Stoker, hey, Clint, you're a traitor. Billy Tucci can do whatever he wants, but Clint Stoker, Clint, you're a scab.
I said, look, man, for all of us that were there that supported the boycott at one point in time, I think it's we're men. Like, that's our thing. We did it. This is what we said we're going to do. Billy wasn't around. Boycotting Kickstarter. He came years later.
Yeah, I actually didn't even know about Indiegogo until Ethan, when you.
I know for Billy, it was like
so many excuses, it's just like, hey, we got Billy can do whatever he want because he's gonna be grandfathered in. Or actually, he can just literally do whatever he wants. But Clint Stoker, you've been here since the start, Clint. You know that there's no Kickstarter unless you're a traitor.
Yeah, he's not going to boycott. He's not going to boycott Kickstarter. But why does it have to be exclusive? Why would it have to be exclusive?
We're boycotting Kickstarter because when we started out, we were being politically discriminated against.
Now we're being politically.
They weren't being politically discriminated against even back then. Mike S. Miller was able to do his thing. Tim was able to do his thing. Other people were able to do his thing. And even Richard went back and he was able to get back on there. Clint Stoker was able to get on there. So yeah, the idea, there were strange people that were at Kickstarter, but the idea that there was just this blanket thing and they were going to find anybody that was on there and they were not going to. So that is not true. So there were just as many quote unquote SJWs at Kickstarter as there were on Indiegogo, as there were at Twitter under Jack Dorsey and YouTube. And my point has always been, if you're going to boycott Kickstarter because there's quote unquote SJWs there, why are you not boycotting YouTube? Because YouTube has a far more influence, and it was headed up at the time by Susan Witkowski or whatever her name is, who was a giant left-wing activist who was actively going after conservative accounts and nuking the accounts and taking away their monetization and all of those sorts of things. So they were just willy-nilly deciding when they were going to boycott and when they weren't, and what platforms you couldn't be on and what platforms you could. But the funny thing is they were the ones that saying that they had a sweetheart deal at Indiegogo with the people. And so what they were doing is they wanted you to use the platform where they had the sweetheart deal, and they were able to pull strings at the time behind the scenes with somebody who allowed them to run multiple campaigns without fulfilling the previous campaign. So if you funneled everybody into the one area where you had the most leverage and the most control, then you were essentially setting yourself up as a de facto gatekeeper, because you had much more leverage and control with the people behind the scenes at Indiegogo. And we know this because they bragged about being able to run multiple campaigns without having to fill the previous campaign, even though you weren't really supposed to do that sort of thing.
Discriminated by.
We want to punish that platform because you can't boycott everybody, Daniel. Boycott yourself into oblivion.
You make one point.
So see, here they are acknowledging that they are basically arbitrarily deciding that Kickstarter is unacceptable, even though Indiegogo, Kickstarter, Twitter, X under Jack, YouTube, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, all these places were San Francisco controlled tech companies, social media companies that discriminated against and put the thumb on the scale to disadvantage conservatives. So if it's arbitrary and you admit it's arbitrary, why are you calling people that go to Kickstarter? Why are you trying to frame Clint Stoker as a traitor when you yourself acknowledge that your boycott is completely arbitrary and in many ways doesn't even make any sense? It's completely it's dysfunctional.
The thing about boycotts have time limits.
Do they?
You buy Ford cars, but you may have boycotted it at one point because you found out Henry Ford was an anti-Semite or a pro-Nazi propagandist.
Yeah, that's why
so you might hate Ford then, but 50 years later, and the same thing with Kickstarter. I don't got a problem.
Talk to me in 50 years.
Because Kickstarter has gotten rid of all those people. They fired all those people.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different regime there. And Dan has a point about Indiegogo and their backhanded shit and nobody to contact and nobody to follow up on. So you're
backhanded shiza right there. Graham Nolan admitting that Indiegogo played the exact same games over time with Comicsgate that Comicsgate said it had to boycott Kickstarter over. So if both of them were playing the exact same games, why would you boycott one and not the other? And if people did choose to use Kickstarter, why were you demonizing them? And why were you saying that they were scabs that crossed the picket line? Very interesting.
You're left in a void wondering how and why you were shadow banned. So I get what he's saying and I understand, it is another platform. It's a different audience. And I think it's foolish for us to not explore more audiences.
It's foolish not to explore more audiences. And that is the exact point that Clint Stoker very tactfully, as in the nicest possible way you could imagine, told his audience is that he thought as a creator who, Clint didn't come from DC. Clint didn't come from Marvel. Some of us out there are indie creators that didn't work for decades at Marvel or DC. And so Clint was very astutely observing that maybe since Kickstarter is such a humongous platform, maybe it might be worth exploring, especially since Kickstarter and Indiegogo both have left-wing activists in them that from time to time target conservatives in seemingly in their own sort of arbitrary sense, unpredictable way.
Why are we arguing about it? Graham, go to Kickstarter. Who cares?
Oh, Graham, go to Kickstarter. Who cares? What about Clint Stoker? Go to Kickstarter. Who cares? You're not going to call Graham Nolan a scab, but you will call Clint Stoker a scab.
Who cares? This ain't a group thing anymore, right? Everybody just do what you want. Just do what you want.
There's Graham like, what is going on right here?
Do what you fucking want.
Well, if that was
Oh, the expletives are coming out. Getting a little angry there. Getting a little angry.
Now, I did boycott Kickstarter. So I'm going to keep boycotting Kickstarter until I'm satisfied. There's no time limit on it for me. I'm going to boycott it to the end of my fucking days if I want to.
ultimately.
So, yeah, it would have been really nice if you would have just taken that track that Clint Stoker and myself and Tim and Mark and everybody else that wanted to go to Kickstarter could do it, and you wouldn't call them traitors, and you wouldn't call them scabs, and you wouldn't say they crossed the picket line. That would have been really nice. But, you know, again, Graham Nolan, Billy Tucci, yeah, they could just do whatever they want because, you know, hey, they got the protection of the main men. You know what I'm saying? When you got the protection, you could do whatever you want, eh? So, all right, I think we've covered enough of that. So, anyway, the point was, Elasmat, I see you did a lot of work here. You did a really good job. And if you have not checked out When the Culture War Hit Those Pretty Pictures 2025, the full movie documentary on indie comics, then check it out. So, all right, boom. Let's see what else we got here. Do we want to, I mean, I've covered so much here. I guess we could cover some of the insanity here. This continues to this day. So this is the ripple effect of calling people traitors and all of this just because they had a different of opinion. It ripples throughout time. The echoes continue to come back. So because I don't go out of my way to take a giant dump on Eric July, and actually I think it's professional for different companies to behave in a, again, not to repeat myself, but professional, gregarious way towards each other. And I gave out a statue, a Rippaverse statue. There are now people out there who are saying, I would like to see proof that Doug bought the statue in the first place. I have a deep suspicion that Eric July sent some out as tax write-offs. So there's a new conspiracy, is that when I give out a Doug prize, if it involves Eric July, then it's actually a conspiracy, a tax write-off for statues, which for a man that's made millions of dollars for the past couple years, it doesn't even make any sense. It's quite insane. Where's the other one? Here's another guy. Until Iconic Comics releases a statement to the contrary, I'm going to assume that the company is now heavily aligned with the Rippaverse, politically and otherwise, given Doug Ernst's active role in defending it. Now, let's unpack this, shall we? Let's see. Pan says, Evan worried about right-wing tear. With a fruitcake. All right, so back to this guy. Oh, Godfo is here. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, if you haven't checked out Godfo's channel, check it out. If you haven't checked out Godfo's books, very, very solid material. I've backed multiple Godfo campaigns and I have never regretted it. So check out Godfo Universe. All right, so apparently now I have an active role in defending Rippaverse. Now, if you go to my X feed and you look at the things that I say on a regular basis, what you will see is that I talk about sound business practices, like actually delivering your books to people in a reasonable time frame when you say you're going to deliver books. If you, as the creator, set a deadline for yourself, it doesn't matter whether it's 6 months, a year and a half, 2 years, you should at least be in the ballpark of your delivery date. You should at least be in the same zip code of the delivery date. If you tell people that the book will take a year or a year and a half, and you don't get it out for 5, 6, 7 years, then we have a problem there. And the idea that good art or great art takes time begins to crumble in upon itself because, again, you are not even in the same zip code as the deadline you set as the creator, especially if you are a creator who has bragged multiple times that you are Mr. Industry extraordinaire and you know everything. You are the man. You were at DC, you were at Marvel, you were at Image, you were at Dark Horse, wherever it was. you were the guy, and you were there for a decade or 2 decades or nearly 3 decades, and you know everything there is to know about the comic business. But when it comes to actually getting your book to the people who ordered your book, you can't get it done in a timely manner. In fact, it is grossly, disgustingly overdue by years. There's a problem with that. So me just talking about sound business practices, like getting your books out to people who ordered them, that's not defending, that's not an active role in defending Eric July. That's an active role in defending sound business practices. Now, I can't help it if I talk about sound business practices and you take it as somehow me coming down on you. Like, if you get upset when I say that, you have a telltale heart. Did you read Edgar Allan Poe when you were a kid? I did. I've said before, I really liked Edgar Allan Poe. I liked Ernest Hemingway. Those were 2 huge influences on me when I was a young man and teenager and into my early 20s. The telltale heart. If somebody says you need to have integrity and do the things that you said you're going to do, and when nobody's looking, you need to do the right thing. If you get upset about that, then you got a telltale heart, dude. And you might want to look in the mirror, because you might be lying to yourself. So, but when it comes to Eric July's books, some people, including people that watch this channel, say they don't like his books, which is fine. But here's the thing. If you have deputized yourself the tastemaker of indie comics, and you're going to go after Eric July's books on a daily basis and say that they're the worst books ever because because you are the tastemaker, again, extraordinaire, you are the artiste. What you say is reality, and you have to warn the world when you are on your deathbed. People are going to be like, hey, what did you do with your life? And you're going to be like, I convinced 58 people not to buy Eric July's books, and I saved indie comics because 58 people didn't buy The Horseman. Like, what are you doing, dude? You don't get to just be the policeman of indie comics taste and telling people, like, it's weird. It's very strange if on a daily basis or even a weekly basis, you are going out there trying to be the Pied Piper of don't buy Eric July's books because reasons. So it's very strange what's going on here, where, again, I don't tell people what they should like and what they don't like. People like all sorts of movies that I don't like. People like all sorts of comic books that I don't like. I'm focused on Soul Finder. I'm focused on getting people to check out my series on combat veteran exorcists that take on a demon called Blackfire until the end of time. Guys who saw the worst in humanity and they came out of it with their faith intact. And they realized that the real war that you need to fight is spiritual warfare. That's where it's really at. The soul of a man is the war that's worth fighting. Looking inside and finding the battlefield in your heart and in your mind and in your soul, and winning those battles and winning that war. That is where it's really at, just beyond the veil. What we can't see, the angels and the demons and the spirits and the principalities that are battling it out for your soul, where you're going to spend eternity. I'm talking about that. I'm not talking, like, I don't tell people you shouldn't buy this guy's book or that guy's book because it sucks and blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. If you are a serious writer, you should be focused on telling people why your books should be purchased, why people should be interested in their books. If you're spending all of your time trying to tear other people down, trying to cut them down to size so you could appear taller, you got problems, dude. So you can't really make the case that you are trying your best to succeed when an inordinate amount of time each week is spent focusing on Eric July and his company? It doesn't make sense. Eric, especially if Eric hasn't ever done anything to you, it's very strange. And again, it's just bizarre to me. So Dan says, great cover. This was by Rodrigo Aviles, who has actually done work as well on Soul Finder Volume 5, which is on the way. Actually, speaking about Soul Finder Volume 5, Alejandro Mirabal of Long Harbor, he just finished a piece. This is a preview. This is not the full piece, but he did this for me so you can kind of see what the Soul Finders are up against in the next volume here. Soul Finder Silent Service. It's about the submariners, nuclear sub captain Nebel from Black Tide who got into the occult. This is actually a prequel that takes place in the 80s and his initial descent into the occult. Why did he feel as though going down the occult road was the way to go to accomplish his goals for national security and for justice for a number of individuals that I won't get into right now. Anyway, I thought it would be really cool. This is like a mini spoiler. If you were going up against a guy and he's like this Navy SEAL type character, he's like, you know, he's definitely not skipping leg day and he's demonically possessed. And he's got one of these deep sea diver helmets in his hands that could withstand all sorts of insane pressures. And you're in an argument or you're confronting this guy or whatever, and he just starts crushing the deep sea diver helmet in front of you because he's getting upset too. And the demons within him are like basically getting riled up as well. And you just see this guy with the diver helmet. He's like, and it's crushed right in front of your eyes. So anyway, this is a preview of Soul Finder Volume 5. Back to my point. Again, if you are a serious writer, if you're trying to do your thing and you're telling people that you're giving it your all, you're giving it 110%, you really need to be focused on your work. You can't be focused on everybody else under the sun. You can't be comparing yourself to the guy next to you. Student of God, thanks for tuning in. I don't know if I said that earlier. Appreciate it. Says conflict marketing. Exactly. Conflict marketing, it works in the short term. You can get a lot of attention on your books if you start causing fights, start throwing firecrackers into crowds. You get a lot of attention, but you start burning bridges, dude, because other creators are focused. They're focused on their thing. They don't got time to constantly. Well, actually, that's the thing. So these guys, they want to go all around the internet starting fires with people. You want to know one thing that you really that works when somebody starts a fire on your indie comics lawn. Sometimes truth dictates that you speak the truth clearly and objectively and without backing down. But sometimes if somebody starts a fire in your indie comics yard, you could just watch it and it will eventually run out of oxygen on its own. And everybody will see who started the fire. They'll see that you didn't respond. And over time, people who start fires all over the place, they get the reputation for being arsonists. And we know who the arsonists are. And once you're pegged as, and someone's going to make some pegging joke. Once you're pegged as an arsonist, then it's people know, and the internet lasts a really long time. So if you're going all over the place calling Chuck Dixon a has-been and these sorts of things, if you're going after Eric July on a daily basis and talking about his books and trying to shave off a couple inches off of him so you can appear a couple inches taller, like, that's not good, dude. That's not good. The Autist Whisperer says, Ernst, I remember Micah attempted to start a beef with you, calling you a spineless jellyfish. You're right. These people just want to start fires. Actually, yeah, he went after me. When he said that, he was talking about saying that I should be friends with John De La Rose. No. He was actually bashing John De La Rose at the time and saying that I was like best friends with him. And then if you fast forward in time, he was, then I was bad. Then I was like the bad person. Like he was friends with John. It was like the weirdest thing. I was just like, if you just wait long enough with these guys, they will just continuously flip, flop, back, forth. They will go, they're all over the map. And you're just like, wait a second. You just said like a couple years ago that I was basically a bad guy because I was friends with this guy, but now you're saying I'm a bad guy because I'm not. Like, it's all over the place. So, and I never even said anything about that guy. That was the weird thing about it, is like I just let him be himself. So whatever. It was very strange. Whisper says, yeah, it was weird. Again, what I think happened was I was friends with and still am friends with Captain Cummings, and I know that he had a problem with Philip. And so the only thing that I could really think is because I was friends with Philip and he had a like really big problem with Philip, that it bled into me. But I never even talked about the guy. It was very strange. So anyway, all right. We've been going for a while, an hour and 20 minutes. Mr. Grovac, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. I think that's about it on my end, unless anyone has any final comments. Let's see, Doug. Yeah, he was doing guilt by association. Again, yeah. That's the only thing I could think of, because I never talked about him on videos. I didn't tweet about him. I didn't do anything. But he just, out of the blue, like multiple times, was like basically saying weird things about me. It was very strange. So, and actually, you know what? I actually emailed him. And if he ever wants to share the entire email chain between us, I think it would be very interesting, because one time he did a video, which I think he privated now, on all the comic book hut stuff. And he was like, yeah, Doug Ernst, he said something like, I tried to bully. I forgot exactly what he said. But basically, I sent him an email when he was talking about the Mitch Breitweiser stuff. And I was like, dude, if you had a problem with me, like basically you could bring it up with me directly. I don't even know, like, you don't even know what you're talking about. All the Mitch Breitweiser conspiracy stuff that I'm trying to destroy Allegiance Arts is not even true. Like, what? I don't know. You want to frame yourself as a reporter for Russia Today or whatever the heck it was. Like a reporter, if you have a question for me and you have easy access to me, you could have asked me, hey, Doug, are you trying to destroy Allegiance Arts? And if not, can you explain why people would be saying that? And then I would be like, yeah, sure. These guys, when I launched the Soul Finder Demons match campaign, were on stream saying that I should be raped and sodomized with rusty instruments. And then I went to Mitch Breitweiser and I told him that's not very, very nice. That's not very neighborly of your team to do. And, you know, if you continue to do this, then at some point in time, I am going to have an uncomfortable conversation about these guys that call themselves the paragons of professionalism in indie comics, because saying that I should be raped and sodomized on live streams to thousands of people, it has blowback on me, because I'm the one who gets to wake up in the morning and people tell me that they're going to refund my books because I upset Mitch's artists. And so, yeah. So anyway, if Micah had just come to me directly and emailed me or DM'd me or whatever and asked me a question like a mature person, I would have been perfectly fine to talk to him. And I did that with many dozens upon dozens upon dozens of people over the years. Actually, you know what? This is exactly what happens. So what'll happen is people in Comicsgate over the years will call me a hippo Christian, and then I get to open my my DMs in the mornings or my email or whatever, and then people are telling me about you know, creators in Comicsgate that want to call me a hippo Christian, or they're saying, or I'm watching the UFC fight and people are like, hey, Ethan Van Sciver is lying about you again, and I'm sitting here watching UFC, chilling out. And I look at my DMs after the Volk fight, Diego Lopez, and apparently Ethan was, talking about Christmas cards and stuff from how many months ago? He's talking about the Eric July Christmas card that Iconic did and saying that it was all about him. No, the Christmas card was about Jesus Christ. It wasn't about you, dude. The Christmas card was about Christmas. The Christmas card that Iconic Comics has put out for multiple years in a row has nothing to do with you, dude. The Christmas card has to do with the birth of our Savior Jesus Christ. And the idea that you would think that I would do a Christmas card about you and not Jesus says more about you than it does about me. So anyway, I wish years ago Micah had just come to me and asked me questions like the reporter that he said he was, because I would have answered his questions like I did for dozens of other people who came to me off to the side and asked me questions. I never had any problem answering questions as long as the person came to me in good faith. So anyway, so those are the things that I get to wake up to in the morning. So this is the stuff I get to see. People saying, let's see, that Iconic Comics and Rippaverse weren't just cordial though. They released a joint Christmas card showcasing their characters reenacting a World War I military truce as if they were two military forces putting an end to the fighting. Now, this comes from Vaughn, who's another one who over the years continuously talks about me. I never talk about the guy. And also, when he first started bashing the Christmas card, he didn't even know that this was in reference, that was inspired by the military truce. So now, after the fact, after people told him what inspired the Christmas card, now he's putting his own spin on it. Their gay alliance is a big deal to them. Listen to the language that these people use. Alliances, everything is an alliance to them, okay? Like, it can't just be that people are professional writers and artists and creators are behaving like professional writers and artists. It has to be an alliance of some kind. Now, if you actually look into the World War I truce, the Christmas truce, it has nothing like the idea that Eric and me were fighting and we view each other as, opposing sides in a world war that are coming together. Like, you have to take the most cynical twist on a Christmas card to come up with these theories about what it is. But here's the thing is they need their false narratives to be true, because if they aren't true, they will realize on a very deep level that they have spent years smearing people and dragging their names through the dirt and saying bad things about them that are just simply not true. And then you have to confront your shadow. You have to confront the fact that you are actually a really mean person for a really long time. And a lot of people don't want to do that, because if you actually came face to face with the fact that you were lying and smearing people for just, I don't know, for that never did anything to you, that go out of their way to not talk about you, to just do their own thing, that's a very uncomfortable thing that would require a lot of growth. And so, yeah, so they got to come up with, this alliance line and all of this sort of stuff. It's kind of sad. So, okay, I guess we're going to keep going here. So I did mention this on X, so I will mention it today. So this was in reference to the actor in the new Fantastic Four movie who was saying that, Johnny Storm was outdated and he shouldn't be a womanizer and he shouldn't be like basically sort of like a bro, like a college frat bro or whatever, and just like a ladies' man or whatever. So I was like, you know what? Is this the day I'm going to talk about this? Why not? I will talk about this. So a couple of years ago, there was a Hollywood producer that expressed, I'm reading my thing here, interest in adapting Soul Finder into a movie or television series, but there was a catch. They couldn't be Catholic. So the plan was that they would be exorcist in some sort of nebulous, generic way and they were employed exclusively by the Pentagon. So there was no way that I was going to go for this. So this was like a no immediately, and that was that. And they went their way, and I went my way. So I actually have a number of Doug Goes to Hollywood sort of stories about shopping Soul Finder around. And it actually, without getting into details, because one day I'm going to drop some really funny receipts on this sort of stuff. But anyways, there's a writer and producer duo who really like Soul Finder a lot. And they've done work on a movie that you would know. This audience would know the movie for sure. And they would know the actress who's in it. Anyway, they wanted to shop it around, and they wanted to try and get capital for a movie or a television series. And so their network has very interesting people in it that have worked for various television shows that you would know, various movies, horror movies that you would know. Also, one movie that is actually a franchise with a very deadly character. He's a very deadly man that you would know of. And anyways, so they've been going around, and the point is Hollywood wants you to divest yourself of your own creation, and they want to get you out of the way, and they want to do whatever they want to do with it. They do not care that you are the creator, and they think that they know better than you about what your series is and how it should be portrayed to the world. This has been my experience over the course of multiple years now, dealing with writers and producers and having to get IP lawyers. And one day I will share a friend of mine who introduced me to my lawyer, because if I did not have my lawyer, I would have been in a world of hurt. All of the stress involved with this sort of stuff would have been exponentially higher. So thank God. Again, I've been blessed to have a very good lawyer involved in all of this. And I have learned a lot about Hollywood and how they deal with people and the deals that they try and cut with you that are completely lopsided and ridiculous and insulting. And they are hoping in the God that they don't even believe in half the time, that you will be so desperate for a deal that you will sell yourself out. And so I'm sure that there are people out there who are like, Doug, you're an idiot. You had an opportunity to get a movie or a television show with Soul Finder, and you walked away from these people? Are you stupid? You'll never get another deal. They'll never come back. So my point of view is I was completely happy before I ever met these people, before they had anything to do with my life. And I care about the books, and I care about the stories. And I know that Matt Weldon and Eric Canetti and Timothy Lim and Bill Williams and Rodrigo and everybody who's ever worked on the Soul Finder books has done great things. And we're continuing to do really cool stuff together. And we're building a library that I believe is totally worth a broader audience. But I am not, as a practicing Catholic man, ever going to sell Soul Finder's IPs away to Hollywood producers who will strip Catholicism from Soul Finder. I will not do that, because one day I will stand before my Lord and Savior. I will be in the judgment room before the throne of God, and I will have to answer for myself. And if I gave Soul Finder to people that were going to strip it of its Catholicism and turn it into some generic mealy mouth exorcist who could be an occultist for all I know, that would not be good on my part. So yeah. Solid Halon, have patience and faith. They'll bring you to the top of the mountain and offer you the world. Mr. DeVries, just as likely as that property would have gotten sat on. Much better to keep it under your own control. Dude, these guys, one day, these are the receipts that I'm going to show down the line after enough time has passed. But you can't just, you don't want to, again, you don't want to burn bridges, so I don't want to put people on public blast. I'm not going to do that. But these guys, they wanted to put me in a situation where I can theoretically imagine a situation where I would be sent some sort of cease and desist order if I was selling Soul Finder rosaries online or at a comic convention or something along those lines. So, like, why would I ever give sign contracts where I couldn't even make rosaries? Like, that's the crazy thing about all of this is on multiple levels they wanted to basically take the thing that I created away from me and take my ability to do what I want in terms of evangelization, getting rosaries into people's hands that are inspired by Soul Finder, put me in a situation where I might even have to, like, I don't know, ask permission to be able to do these sorts of things and possibly be told no. And I don't know, all of it, like, it was all very strange. And then you can get into what I know how they were pitching it to various studios, and I know what they think Soul Finder is worth. I know what they think the potential of it is. And when you match what they are telling various studios in terms of its potential, and then how much they say that they will give me, it is insulting and embarrassing and ridiculous. And they come up with all sorts of justifications why I need to be given this contract that is ridiculous. But they believe that if they can do the movie that they want or the television show that they want, that it can go all sorts of places. So on one, they're talking out both sides of their mouth, and it's ridiculous. So again, in time, I have some very funny receipts and I have some interesting stories to tell. And my lawyer, when I initially met her, I read through this contract and I was like, well, this is really weird. And I was telling her all the things that I thought were weird about it. And she's like, you have good spidey sense. And when she said that I had good spidey sense, I was like, I know I got the right lawyer, because only the lawyer that I would want to work with would say that I have good spider sense. So very interesting. So no, not Angel Studios. No, some different studios that you definitely heard about. So some very large studios. Let's see. All right. Let's comic artist JW. Yes, deep down we are all Catholic. Don't get me started. I don't want to like alienate people. I have certain opinions on I'm trying to be tactful here. So, all right. Actually, speaking about keeping it on a positive note, I almost forgot to thank Eric Canetti as well for this new piece that he did of Father Redder. And so one day maybe he'll tell his story about what inspired this particular piece. But Eric Canetti of Arc Athena 5 and 6 are coming out in the very near future as well. So keep an eye on that. But this piece, I got to write a story around just this piece. It's got giant St. Michael angels in it. It's got the sword of St. Michael, I guess, in a way. It's got grizzled military veterans. It's got muscle cars. It's out there in the middle of, the Midwest somewhere. There's probably cornfields or who knows. Got the power lines running in the middle of the country. It's got everything. It's like the ultimate Soul Finder bomb in terms of the themes and the motifs and the symbols that I'm all after with Soul Finder. So, Eric Canetti, thank you very much for putting this piece together. I really appreciate it. So, yeah. All right. I think that's about it. Again, if you haven't checked out the new Kamen America Alpha, the manga on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, check that out. Black Ops is going to be doing a double feature with Kamen America 11 later this year. Tim is done with the Black Ops. He's doing Kamen America 11, I believe, right now. And if there's anything else I missed, Butch Killigan, be on the lookout. That'll be fulfilling soon. Butch Killigan 2. Make sure your address is updated. Check out Iconic Comics for Soul Finder, Tunnel Hounds, and all sorts of other Soul Finder stuff. Merchandise is coming later this year. Be on the lookout for that. It will involve angels, which will also appear in Soul Finder Volume 6. All right, I think that's about it for now. I've said my piece. See you later. Oh, and happy Easter. See you later.